Welcome to Women of Worth, where we explore the topics that empower and inspire women to live their best lives. Today, we're diving into one of the most important conversations for women navigating modern life: how to balance career ambitions with personal fulfillment. Have you ever felt torn between striving for professional success and nurturing your personal happiness? It's a challenge many women face daily, juggling work deadlines, family commitments, and personal passions. But here's the truth. Achieving harmony between these two worlds is possible, and it doesn't mean sacrificing one for the other. In this episode, we'll explore the unique challenges women encounter in finding balance, share real-life examples of women who have successfully navigated this path, and provide actionable strategies to help you align your career goals with your personal priorities. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a working mum, or someone figuring out your path, this conversation is for you. So grab your favorite drink, settle into a cozy spot, and let's discover how you can thrive in all areas of your life. And before we get started, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. We'd also love to hear from you. What's your biggest challenge in balancing work and personal life? Let us know in the comments below.
Have you ever felt like you're constantly trying to balance your career ambitions with, just having a life?
Yeah.
I think especially for women, it's something a lot of us can relate to. So today we're going to take a deep dive into finding that sweet spot.
Okay.
It's not really about having it all.
Right.
It's about finding that harmony between our professional and personal lives. And we're going to be pulling some insights from a great episode of the Women of Worth podcast.
Awesome.
So we're going to look at why this balance even matters.
Okay.
And then we're going to explore those unique challenges that women face. And then finally, we'll dig into some strategies to help us all find that equilibrium.
It can be so elusive.
Oh, it really can.
It really can.
So first off, what's so fascinating to me is that this isn't just about, feeling good, this balance.
Yeah.
It's really crucial for our well-being.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a research from the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology
Oh, wow.
that shows that chronic work stress can really lead to burnout. And we're not just talking about, just feeling tired here.
Right.
We're talking serious consequences.
Yeah.
Like cardiovascular problems,
Wow.
insomnia, even a weakened immune system.
That's a real sobering reminder that, if you're really pushing yourself too hard, it can have some repercussions.
It really can.
The Women of Worth episode actually shared this story of Sophia.
Okay.
She was a marketing executive, and she was so dedicated to her career that she actually ended up with some pretty serious health issues.
Oh, wow.
It made her realize she needed to really reevaluate what was important to her.
Yeah.
And, instead of focusing on those external achievements, she had to start thinking about her health and well-being.
I think Sophia's story is a really good example of how we can mistake busyness for success.
Yeah.
But true success, is about taking care of ourselves so we can actually show up
Right.
in all areas of our life.
That's such a good point. And the podcast also highlighted this idea of holistic success. And that really resonated with me. It's about recognizing that our worth isn't tied to just our job title.
Right.
It's about feeling fulfilled across all areas of life.
Exactly.
So our career,
Yeah.
our relationships, personal growth, and our well-being.
I think a lot of women in particular struggle with this.
Yeah.
The podcast gave the example of Hannah. She was a software engineer, and on paper, she had it all.
Oh, wow.
Successful career,
Yeah.
loving family.
Okay.
But she felt disconnected from her kids.
Oh, no.
And it really made her realize that professional pride can sometimes blind us to those imbalances in other areas of our lives.
Right.
So she actually started scheduling dedicated family nights each week
Oh, wow.
to consciously prioritize that time with her family.
It sounds like she was really intentional about creating space for her family,
She was.
which is so important. But let's face it, finding this balance can feel especially challenging for women.
It can.
Why is that? What are some of those unique obstacles that we face?
Well, I think there's the obvious one. societal expectations. You know, even in today's world, there's still this unspoken pressure on women to excel in their careers, but then also be the primary caregivers at home.
It's like we're constantly juggling multiple roles and never quite measuring up.
And it can feel like that. Yeah. It can lead to a lot of guilt and self-doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that kind of ties into another challenge many women face. Perfectionism.
Yes.
It's like this pressure to be flawless in every role.
Yeah.
The perfect employee, the perfect mother, the perfect partner.
The perfect friend.
Yeah, it can be so exhausting.
It is.
And frankly, impossible.
It is.
And on top of all of those expectations, we often lack, adequate support systems.
Right.
Whether it's partners who don't share the load at home.
Yeah.
Or workplaces that are not as flexible as they could be.
It can really feel like you're swimming upstream.
Yeah.
And then if that wasn't enough,
many
women also experience those internal conflicts, wanting to excel professionally, but also nurturing their personal passions and desires. So how do you prioritize your career aspirations while making time for the things that bring you joy and fulfillment outside of work?
That's a great question. And it's something that I think a lot of women really grapple with.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate all of this? Where do we even begin to find that balance?
Well, the Women of Worth episode offered some really practical strategies.
Okay.
And they emphasize that it's not about having it all figured out right away.
Okay.
It's about, taking small steps and finding what works for you.
I love that.
So should we dive into some of those?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm ready for some actionable advice.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's explore those strategies and see what resonates.
Great.
So let's get into some of those strategies from the Women of Worth episode.
Okay.
They really emphasize that, finding balance isn't about like a magic formula or anything. It's about figuring out what works for you. And one of the first things they highlighted was setting clear priorities.
Yeah.
And it sounds basic.
Yeah.
But it's actually really powerful.
It is.
When you know what truly matters most to you, it becomes so much easier to make those decisions about where to focus your time and energy.
Totally. And the podcast gave a great example of this. They talked about an entrepreneur named Clara. And she was really passionate about growing her business. But she also loved photography. And she realized that trying to do both at the same time was really leaving her feeling just scattered and overwhelmed. So she decided to dedicate her weekdays to her business and then reserve her weekends for photography.
That makes so much sense by creating those clear boundaries.
Yeah.
She was able to honor both her professional aspirations and her personal passions.
Exactly.
And that kind of leads us to another strategy, embracing flexibility.
Yes.
In today's world, we have more options than ever before.
We do.
In terms of how and where we work.
Absolutely.
That traditional 9-to-5 model.
Yeah.
It's not the only way anymore.
It's not.
The Women of Worth episode told the story of Alina. She was a financial consultant, and she was feeling really torn between her demanding job and this desire to volunteer at an animal shelter. And it felt like she had to choose the other. But instead of giving up on either of those passions, she decided to talk to her employer about a more flexible schedule.
Good for her.
And she was able to negotiate a 4-day work week.
Wow.
Which then freed up her Fridays to volunteer.
That's great.
That's such an awesome example of how advocating for our needs can open up possibility that we might not have even considered.
Absolutely.
It's not always easy,
right?
But it's worth having those conversations.
It is.
Now, delegation is something I personally struggle with. Do you have any advice on that? How to get better at it?
I think a lot of us have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Especially when you're used to doing everything yourself.
Right.
But as they pointed out on the podcast, delegating tasks, both at work and at home, can be so incredibly liberating.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
They shared the story of Grace, who was a project manager. And she was feeling really overwhelmed by the demands of her job and her family life. And she was initially really hesitant to delegate.
Right.
But she finally decided to outsource some of her household chores.
That's great.
Which gave her more time and mental space to focus on the things she really enjoyed. Like spending quality time with her family. And pursuing her hobbies.
Good for her. It's a good reminder that we don't have to be superheroes.
It is.
Asking for help can actually make us more effective and less stressed.
And it's not just about asking for help, right? It's about empowering others.
Exactly.
At work.
Yeah.
Delegating tasks effectively can actually help your team members grow and develop their skills.
Right, which benefits everyone.
Which benefits everyone. Now, speaking of support, the podcast really highlighted the importance of building a strong support network.
Yeah.
Having people in your corner who understand your goals and challenges can make a huge difference.
They talked about Laura, who was feeling really isolated in her tech career.
Oh, yeah.
And she decided to join a women in tech group.
Good for her.
And it was a game changer for her.
That's awesome.
She found mentors who offered guidance and advice.
Yeah.
And she connected with other women who were navigating similar experiences.
I love that. What's so fascinating about Laura's story is that it shows how powerful it can be to connect with people who really get what you're going through. That sense of community and shared experience can be so validating.
Yeah, it's true.
And empowering.
It reminds me of when I was transitioning careers.
Yeah.
And I had this group of supportive women to talk to. It made such a difference.
That's great.
They helped me stay focused and motivated.
Yeah.
And just less alone in the process.
I love that.
Now, I'm a big believer in setting boundaries.
Me too.
But I know it's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Do you have any tips on how to create those boundaries effectively?
Well, I think, boundaries are crucial for protecting our time and our energy.
Right.
The Women of Worth episode gave a good example.
Okay.
They talked about Natalie.
Right.
Who realized she was constantly checking work emails, like late into the evening, which was cutting into her personal time.
It's so easy to get sucked into that 24/7 work culture.
It really is, and it's not sustainable.
It's not.
So Natalie actually decided to set a firm boundary.
Okay.
No work emails after 7 p.m.
I love that. And this allowed her to just be more present during her evenings to focus on her hobbies.
Yeah.
And to actually disconnect from work.
It sounds like such a simple shift.
Yeah.
But I can imagine what a huge impact it had.
It did. It was a game changer for her.
Yeah.
And it really highlights, that small, consistent actions can have a ripple effect on our lives.
Absolutely. So we've talked about setting priorities, bracing flexibility, delegating tasks, building a support network, and creating boundaries. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground with these strategies for finding balance.
Yeah.
But you know what really brings it home for me?
Yeah.
Are the real life examples
Absolutely.
of women who are making this work. The Women of Worth episode had some truly inspiring stories.
It did.
One that really stuck with me was Ella's story.
Okay.
She was a journalist.
All right.
With this high-flying career that took her all over the world. But she started to feel like that demanding travel schedule was taking a toll on her personal relationship.
It's so easy for that to happen.
Oh, it really is. It sounds like she was at a crossroads.
Yeah.
Having to choose between her career and her personal life.
It can feel like that sometimes.
Totally. But she actually found a third way.
Oh, good.
Instead of giving up journalism altogether, she transitioned to freelance writing.
That's great.
So she was still able to use her skills and pursue her passion, but with more control over her schedule.
That's awesome. That's a great example of how sometimes finding balance really means redefining what success looks like for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to fit that conventional mold.
It doesn't.
Were there any other stories that resonated with you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There was Nadia.
Okay.
She had a very analytical job as a data analyst, but she also had this creative side that she wasn't really expressing. She'd always loved baking, but it had kind of fallen by the wayside as her career took off.
So how did she bring those two worlds together?
Well, she started small. Just carving out time each week to experiment in the kitchen.
I love that.
Yeah, so she would spend, her Sunday mornings trying out new recipes.
Yeah.
Just having fun with it.
Right.
It wasn't about becoming a professional baker.
Right.
It was about nurturing that creative part of herself.
It's such a good reminder that we're not one-dimensional.
Right.
We have multiple interests and passions.
We do.
And finding that balance is about creating space for all of them.
Yes.
Even in small ways.
Absolutely. And then there was Irene. And her partner.
Right.
And they both had really demanding careers. But they were also really passionate about travel and adventure.
Oh, wow.
But it felt impossible to make time for it.
Yeah, it sounds like they had to get creative with their scheduling.
They did. They started planning their vacations really strategically. Like around their work commitment, which allowed them to explore the world together.
That's awesome.
But still prioritize their careers.
That's such a great example of how, couples can support each other.
Yeah.
In finding that work-life harmony.
Absolutely.
These stories are so inspiring.
They are.
It's really encouraging to see that it is possible to create a life that incorporates both ambition and personal fulfillment.
It is.
But besides, just the feel-good factor, what are the tangible benefit of finding this balance?
Well, like we discussed earlier, there's the mental health benefits.
Right.
Reducing stress.
Yeah.
Avoiding burnout is so crucial for our well-being.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, finding balance can actually lead to increased productivity when we're not constantly feeling overwhelmed and exhausted.
Yeah. We're able to focus better.
Yeah.
And produce higher quality work.
It's like that saying, work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
When we're balanced, we're more efficient.
Right.
And effective in all areas.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's the impact on our relationships.
Yes.
When we're more present and less stressed, we can show up more fully for the people we care about.
Exactly.
So that leads to stronger connections and more fulfilling relationships.
It's a win-win all around.
It really is. And I imagine that, finding this balance also contributes to personal growth. When we're pursuing our passions and taking care of our well-being, we're constantly learning and evolving.
We are. It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
Yes.
Both personally and professionally.
Love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into balancing career ambitions and personal fulfillment, I think the biggest takeaway for me
is that it's not about achieving some, mythical perfect balance.
Right.
It's about finding what works for you.
Absolutely.
And embracing your own unique journey.
It's an ongoing process.
It really is.
Life is constantly changing, so our needs and our priorities will shift over time. What matters is that we stay connected to ourselves, listen to our needs, and make adjustments as we go.
There's one thing I hope our listeners take away from this episode, is that they have the power to create a life that aligns with their values and their aspirations.
It's not always easy.
It's not.
But it's definitely worth the effort.
It really is. Yeah. So as you continue on your own journey towards balance,
I
have a question for you to consider.
Right.
What is one small step you can take today to move in that direction?
That's a great question.
It could be as simple as, setting aside 15 minutes to do something you enjoy, or having a conversation with your partner about sharing responsibilities, or, finally booking that doctor's appointment you've been putting off.
Whatever it is, remember that even those small steps can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to reach out for support along the way.
Yes.
Talk to your friends, your family, or, connect with other women who are navigating similar challenges.
There's strength in community.
Absolutely. We would love to hear from you.
Yes.
What are your tips for finding balance? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. And share it with your friends.
And we'll be back soon with more empowering insights and thought-provoking conversation. Until then, keep diving deep.